The one with Rachel's phone number is the 9th episode of season 9 of Friends. This is directed by Ben Weiss, and as always, there will be spoilers from now. As I go through the episode and share some thoughts, I will talk about each part of the narrative in turn. I will talk about Joey, Chandler, and Monica first of all, and then I'll talk about Phoebe, Rachel, Ross, and Mike. And it starts off with Joey telling Chandler that he has courtside Knicks tickets. But there's a problem because Monica, understandably, wants to spend time with Chandler when he comes home from Tulsa because he's not there for a long time. It would be another week before she gets to spend any time with him. But Chandler doesn't have the heart to tell Joey this, so he lies and says that he has to work and stay in Tulsa. And Chandler comes home, and Monica is, well, practicing the art of seduction. And Joey witnesses this, and Joey thinks that she's cheating on Chandler. And we have one of my favourite scenes, maybe not one of my favourite scenes ever, but certainly in this episode. Joey phones Chandler to say, hey, I think Monica's cheating on you. But of course, Chandler's in the apartment. And Joey can hear the man's voice from the other side of the door. He doesn't recognise it's Chandler's voice, which is a bit bizarre, but then it is Joey. And whenever Chandler got panicky on the phone, he would raise his voice and then Joey would hear his voice through the door, and it was just beautifully executed. It was quite brief, but I really thoroughly enjoyed that. And Chandler ultimately says, okay, I'll come home and investigate this. How is he going to do this? Because Joey said he's going to wait outside the door to watch. Well, Chandler's have to go to climb down the fire escape. And after some time, he does this. He walks back up the stairs to the apartment. And, well, of course, there's no man there. And Monica is outraged that Chandler would allegedly accuse her of this. She slaps him. It's chaotic. Joey takes a bat through to the bedroom and starts beating up the pillows. And Monica and Chandler are clearly loving this. And it seems like they were going to get away with it. Except they didn't put away Chandler's suitcase. And I think that would have been an easy solution. They could have just said to Joey, no, I did have my luggage, you just didn't see it. Because he seemed to believe that Chandler had just arrived from Tulsa, so maybe he would have believed that as well. But no, they told the truth. They did the right thing. Joey hit himself on the head with a bat, and Monica tells Chandler that he can go to the game, which I think is fair. If they're going to lie to Joey like this and make Joey think that Monica's cheating on Chandler by plumping the pillows up to look like a man, yeah, let Joey go to the game with Chandler and have some fun. I think that's the least that they could do. And Chandler says to Joey as he leaves that nobody thinks Joey's stupid. And then a second later, Chandler points out the tickets are for tomorrow night, not tonight. It was a nice, fun way to wrap things up. I think it's a very funny part of the episode. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And then we come to Phoebe, Rachel, Ross, and Mike. And Phoebe and Rachel are going out for the night. So Ross and Mike are spending time together to get to know each other. And they don't really have a lot to say to each other. They don't really have anything to talk about. Neither of them is particularly good at having a conversation. Things start to spark a little bit when they're talking about beer and lager, but that was very short-lived. And I just kept thinking, why put on the television? If you're both clearly unable to have a conversation, if you're unable to make small talk, put on the television. Make some comments about what you're watching. It could help. But nobody ever thought of that, so that's not what happened there. We'll come back to Mike and Ross in a moment. We're then out with Phoebe and Rachel. It's a night atmosphere. I didn't really agree with what Phoebe decided to do because some guys sent them some drinks, which was very nice. And Phoebe said that we can reciprocate. It doesn't have to lead to anything. It doesn't have to lead to eye contact because that's what Rachel had with Ross. And I don't necessarily agree with that. On the one hand, yes, it's fine to meet people if you don't plan on going any further than that initial encounter. But at the same time, you are leading them on, wasting their time and potentially wasting their money if they're going to be buying you drinks, hoping that they'll get to know you and maybe lead to a relationship. So I don't agree with Phoebe's logic there, but at the same time, it's not a huge issue. And then we also have to remember that Rachel's not in a relationship. All she has with Ross is eye contact. And she does end up giving Bill her number. Bill is played by Payne Gilbert. And then she panics because she realizes Bill will call the apartment and Ross is going to answer. And if only this was set a few years later, she would have given him a cell phone number instead. But obviously, that's not what happened. And this is another one of my favourite moments in the whole episode. Mike leaves. He finally manages to escape. And I think it's clear to see that both Mike and Ross are so relieved by the situation. And then Phoebe phones Mike and says that he has to go back into the apartment that he's just left so that he can intercept Ross's calls. And Mike knocks on the door. And Ross answers, of course. And just both of their expressions here when they realise they're going to have to go through this again. Fabulous. And then, of course, the phone rings. It's actually for Ross, it wasn't Bill, but the phone rings and Mike launches at it. And Ross's confusion is so funny. He has no idea what just happened. And I have to say that would be very, very bizarre. If somebody answered if I had a house phone, or even my mobile phone, if somebody I barely know answered that, I'd be very, very confused. And Ross certainly was, and I thought the performance there was brilliant. But as I said, it was a call for Ross, it wasn't Bill. And then just before the others come back, Bill does phone. And Ross said, I'll make sure Rachel gets your number. And he doesn't give her the number. Which I also don't agree with, because it's not up to him. It's up to Rachel if she wants to give Bill, or anybody, her number. But I think it also very clearly tells us where Ross's head is at. And I feel like he's kind of, at least with this episode, he's not wanting her to date anybody else. But he's not currently asking her out either. And not for the first time either. It was a frustrating moment, but quite a moving one as well. And then we end the episode with Mike and Ross in Central Park, alone again. And it was a nice way to end things. It is quite interesting with Mike here, because on the one hand, he's very quickly being brought into the fold as the seventh friend, which I love. I think that's brilliant. But I think it also makes it quite realistic that while he's very quickly becoming the seventh friend, it's not just an instant friendship with Ross here. It's going to take some time to build that up. And I think that feels more realistic, more believable. I certainly buy into that a lot more. And I liked it. I thought it worked really well. And the episode as a whole is very funny, but also very moving, very thought-provoking with Ross. I don't necessarily agree with Ross or Phoebe completely in this episode, but I enjoyed it nevertheless. And I think just the way the story with Joey and Chandler was handled was quite funny as well. I think there were better resolutions. I think they could have easily told Joey that Chandler did bring up the suitcase and he just didn't see it. I think Joey would have just accepted that. But other than that, everything was brilliant. And as is usually the case, it's a really great episode of Friends.